Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be going over the manhwa called Villain to Kill. So yeah, hopefully you guys all enjoy, and let's go. The child of the day and the child of the night have both loathed and despised each other. This was a fight they started since the age of the myth. Unfortunately, it was dragged on to the humans. This said fight exists till this day. We switch over to a bank and we see a clown saying that all hideous villains that live in hell long for heaven. We see that there are cops all around him, but they are all afraid as he starts floating up on a ball. He says, "Welcome to the Ralph Show." One of the cops tells everyone to run, but Ralph uses his death ball to smash the ground. Ralph says that it was a nice shot and it's exactly how he wanted. Ralph notices a cop that's on the floor aiming his gun at him, but then he summons a pin and tells the cop that there is always a pest like him wherever he goes. Ralph then throws the pin and calls the cop a useless punk. Ralph has a smile on his face while the explosion happens behind him where he threw the pin. We see a lot of villains at the bank, but then a school bus comes rushing in and Ralph tells everyone that it's time to go. Ralph then looks at the money and says that he has longs for the smell. He will be using his money meaningfully for the fearful and horrifying Ralph Land. Some of the villains go up to the bus and bangs on it and tells the guy to open up. The bus driver opens up the door and the guy asks him what is he doing in there. The bus driver tells him that the school bus doors usually open up slowly. The bus driver questions the guy of who the girl is behind him and he says that she is a hostage. The bus driver then notices another girl and a different villain says that she is the governor's child. They have the governor's wife and kid, and the villains think that they are going to be useful. The wife then falls on the floor and begs the villain to let go of her child. Another villain comes up and grabs her arm and tells her to shut up and stay still. Mother and daughter call out to each other, but the villain tells the daughter to stay still, and if she doesn't, he'll have to pinch her. We then see the bus driver behind one of the villains, and he tells the guy to let go of the child. The villain is like, what are you talking about? But then the bus driver comes up and he's like, yo, you gotta let go of her. The other villain lets go of the mother's arm and questions what the bus driver's doing. We get some dialogue about how people in this world are born with special abilities, and people who awaken their powers and become criminals from greed have the blood of the knight's child. We see Ralph and some villains shooting their guns, and these guys are called villains. Ralph tells everyone to go back and let's celebrate, and they all start chanting his name. Ralph then is about to open up the bus door, but then one of the villains comes flying out of the window. Ralph with shock looks over and we get some more dialogue about those who oppose the villains are another kind of superhuman. We see the bus driver dragging out another villain, but Ralph questions who is he. The bus driver starts to take off his mask and he says that he's here to collect the trash. People who are born with a day's child's blood, they are called psychers. The bus driver is named Cassian Lee, and he is an S-class psycher. Cassian tells Ralph that it's been a year and it's so nice to see him. Ralph is shocked that Cassian is even there. Cassian starts to pull an earbud out and then lights a fire with a snap of his fingers. He is excited because now that all the distractions are gone, they can start finally playing around. We see Ralph worried and shocked, and he starts to say something, but Cassian interrupted him and tells them that they can't even be recycled and he will not leave anyone behind because he's gonna burn them all to death. We switch over to a news broadcast about the incident with the villain named Ralph. They say that Cassian used brutal methods of violence in his pursuit to capture the villains. Unfortunately, Cassian is subject to a penalty and they made a request to Lampus about this issue. We move to the Lampus, Washington branch and a woman asked if Cassian is a villain. This woman is an S-rank psycher and her hero name is Tuppence Schiller. Cassian responded to her question and says that they shouldn't mess around with villains. This woman is also the director of Lampus, and she asked if Cassian is reflecting on his mistakes. Because he ignored the plan and acted on his own, they lost Ralph and the public is disliking them. The villains took people hostage, but the director says that he should have been more careful. Their top priority is to make sure the hostage is safe and out of danger. Cassian tells her that he had the confidence to save the hostages. She says that if Cassian is a psyker, he needs to act like one and make sensible decisions. Trusting something just because he might think it's right doesn't mean it is. She tells him to look at the outcome and questions what difference it has with the villain. Cassian doesn't say anything, and the director tells him that he's under probation and he knows what happens if he messes around while on probation. Cassian walks away and thinks how she's called the Steel Tower Witch. He questions how Jeff is best friends with her. He thinks he should just run away, but then suddenly he gets a call from Jeff, which he picks up and asks what's up. Jeff tells Cassian to meet up at Rhodey's, which is in Greece. We switch over to Rhodey's International Airport and we see Cassian sitting down, and he says that he gets to visit her because of him. He asked how long it's been since the last time they saw each other, and it was about 6 months ago. We then get a flashback to an orphanage and we see Cassian and how he grew up and became a psyker. He questions himself if it was 2 years after he moved to America, and during that time he had no worries at all. He misses those times, but Cassian gets up and checks his phone to notice that Jeff is late and it's 7:30. He's also calling Jeff, but he hasn't picked up his phone. Then someone calls Cassian's name, which turns out to be Jeff. Cassian runs straight over to Jeff and questions what happened to him since he's all beaten up. Cassian wonders if Jeff got beaten up by a villain, but Jeff tells him that he shouldn't have called him. Cassian is questioning what Jeff is talking about, but then Jeff hands him a necklace. Cassian is telling Jeff that it doesn't matter since Jeff's current state is a total mess. Jeff says that he's fine, but then he coughs up blood. He tells Cassian that he doesn't have time to explain and he must leave this place immediately. If he does stay, he will be in danger, but Cassian says that he will call an ambulance, but then notices someone approaching them. He questions who's there, but then Jeff pushes him back. The mysterious man then comes charging at Jeff and proceeds to attack him, which kills Jeff. Cassian screams Jeff's name while shaking, but then the mysterious man starts to run away and Cassian tells him to stay right there as he runs towards the person. We see Cassian out of breath while asking if he has a grudge against him. He questions if the mysterious person has a saju from someone, but he doesn't care about that. He threatens that person while he uses his ability. The person starts to take off his mask while telling Cassian that he still speaks roughly. Cassian knows the person under the mask, which shocks him, and the person name is Jack, and he is an S-class psyker. Cassian questions why Jack killed Jeff, but Jack tells him that he removed the organization's traitor. Cassian doesn't believe him, but then another person comes out of nowhere to tell Cassian that they are telling the truth. They say that Jeff murdered a comrade, and there is a witness as well as evidence. The Lampus chief executives confirmed it. The lady telling him this is also a psyker that is S-rank, and her name is Lila. Jack tells Cassian that he is also a suspect since he had a conversation with Jeff and he must tell the truth. Cassian sighs and says that after 10 years of Jeff being a psyker, he's never killed anyone. Now suddenly they're telling him that Jeff killed his own comrade. Lila tells him that they have 2 more S-ranked psychers there and they hope he doesn't make a foolish decision. Jack tells him to make sensible choices and it's his last warning. Cassian smiles and says that Jack is right, so if you're a psyker then act like a reasonable and sensible one, but Jack is the exception. Cassian charges at Jack, but he reacts and then pulls out his sword. Cassian throws a punch at Jack, but he blocks it and jumps backwards. Jack then uses a skill called Sword Saint. Lila then also uses her skill called Cold Blast. Cassian tells them to fight him, which they start to go at it. Suddenly, when Cassian was about to charge at them, something ended up hitting him. Cassian drops to the floor, bleeding and in pain. He thinks that the other psyker is a sniper, but then Lila tells him to surrender since the next shot will be aimed at his head. Cassian tells them to screw off and he throws a hellfire attack at them. He then runs towards the water and tells them to meet again, but the sniper didn't want to let him go and shoots him again. Cassian doesn't understand as he falls into the water and he thinks that he can't die like this. All he wanted to do was just take revenge for Jeff. We switch to a bathroom and someone says that this person isn't breathing and they question if he's dead, but they decide to run away. Then the kid pulls his head out of the toilet and is confused. We see the kid have the same necklace that Jeff gave to Cassian. The boy that had his head in the toilet water is confused and questions where he's at. He says that he was at a cliff and questions what's wrong with his voice. He then looks into the mirror and doesn't understand what's going on. He questions why he's in a kid's body instead of his own body. He thinks that it's just a dream, so then he gets water on his hands to slick back his hair. Finally, he notices that it's not a dream and he wonders how this happened, but then he gets memories of the kid's life. He figures out where he is, but still questions how everything is like this and why memories are flooding into his brain. Randomly, a voice calls out Cassian's name and he looks around but doesn't see anyone. Then a spirit comes out of his necklace and introduces themselves as Moros. He tells Cassian that he's an ancient and noble spirit. Cassian looks at Moros with confusion and questions how he came out of his necklace. Moros questions if Cassian is more worried about other stuff besides him. He asked if Cassian wants to know, and then we move to the outside and Cassian questions Moros if he's the one who saved him and brought him back to life. Moros gets annoyed since he already told him that many times. He is surprised since Cassian grew to Korean quite fast. He tells Moros that he was from Korea before he was adopted. He then starts to think about the idea of dying and coming back to life. It doesn't make any sense to him, and so Moros asked if Jeff passed the necklace on to him. Apparently, Jeff did that to protect Cassian. He doesn't understand and then questions Jeff's motives. Cassian then asked Moros about what Jeff was looking for and questions if it's the iron scrap sword. Moros says that it's the exterminator's sword. He then starts to tell Cassian a story about a time years and years ago. This sword was made during the age of the myth. Cassian questions how Moros knows any of this. Moros tells him that it's because he's an ancient and noble spirit. Like, come on Cassian, let's get with the program. Cassian thinks he is lying, but Moros tells him to listen and learn since he is ignorant. He gets annoyed, but then asks Moros how he could even trust him. Moros tells him that he had to sacrifice half of his power just to revive him. Cassian, looking through his phone, says that he doesn't believe Moros, but then sees an article about him and Jeff. In the article, it says Cassian killed Jeff, which is unbelievable and doesn't make any sense. Cassian grits his teeth and starts calling them names. Lampus might be saving people, but they buried him. Moros tells Cassian to calm down since the way he is now isn't good. We then see marks in 2 different eye colors appear on Cassian. He starts to feel pain, but then looks at his hands and sees them with claws or armor on them. He doesn't understand and questions what this is. We switch over to a group of people questioning why someone isn't coming. One guy tells the others that the guy will be there soon. Soon enough, the guy comes running to them. The guy with the purple hair asked if Bowl Cuts went to check, which he did, and told them that there was no one at the toilet. All of them were shocked, but the dude with the bat comes up to Bowl Cut and questions if he checked it properly. The guy with the bat asked if Bowl Cut saw any police officers or even an ambulance. He assures them that he didn't see anything or anyone. The blonde guy gets loud and questions the guy with the bat because he said that Cassian is dead. Just to let you guys know that it wasn't actually Cassian at the time that died, but technically it was Cassian that died and swapped over to the dude that they killed in the body. so hopefully I'll follow in along with that. The Bat Guy thinks that it's impossible since he was sure that he wasn't breathing. Purple hair dude told Bowl-Cut to leave, which he then does. Blonde hair yells at the Bat Guy for screwing around about Cassian's death. Purple haired dude told them to quit crying and said that Cassian isn't dead. The other two questions what's their plan for Cassian, and the purple haired dude told them that they were going to find him and beat him to a pulp. We switch over to a rooftop with Cassian on it, and of course he's speaking to Moros. Moros questions Cassian of how we sneaked up all the way on the roof without anyone noticing. Moros is amazed, especially since Cassian climbed up the walls just to get there. Cassian tells Moros to shut up and questions why he got turned into a villain. Moros tells him that he's short-tempered, and then he explains that Cassian was killed, but he was brought back to life. The result made the balance of destiny all wacky, and Cassian was originally destined to survive and then turn into a villain. He was supposed to be a villain with a catastrophic class power. Cassian is shook and then asks Moros if what he said is true. Moros agrees with him, but then randomly Cassian starts to laugh. Cassian tells himself that he is now a villain, and what's worse is that he's one from a catastrophic class. With rage, he backhands the wall with a closed fist and starts to yell at Moros. "Why did Jeff save him?" Cassian loudly expresses. Moros tries telling Cassian to calm down and control himself, but Cassian had enough and tells Moros to shut it. Of course, Moros didn't shut up, and he told Cassian that villains' capacity for reason is lower because of insatiable desires. Cassian could even become a true villain at this very moment, so they must be aware of the evil inside of him. Moros is the one controlling and holding back that evil for now, but if Cassian rage increases, then less control Moros has over it. Cassian heard enough and accepts that he's now a villain, but was down about his fate since it could have been at least better. Moros then tells Cassian that he must live since Jeff would have told him that if he was still around. Cassian didn't know what Moros meant, but Moros told him that Jeff regretted bringing him into this. Jeff knew he could have died, but he didn't look for a way out, and instead he gave up his only chance at a second life. Moros tells Cassian not to waste Jeff's sacrifice, which he understands. Moros tells him to remain calm as he is now, but Cassian didn't like Moros giving him orders since it pisses him off. Moros asked if Cassian wants to return to being a human, which of course he agrees to. Cassian calls Moros a you, but Moros didn't like that, and he says that he isn't you, but he is the ancient noble spirit Moros. Cassian then questions about who Moros really is, especially since he could bring the dead back to life. Moros says that Cassian will find out more once he looks for the exterminator sword with him. Cassian calls that sword scrap metal and then asks Moros if the sword is related to Jeff's death. Moros says he believes that it was, and Cassian didn't say anything, but then turned his head once he heard someone calling him. We see that it's the three boys that tried to drown Cassian's body's previous owner. They walk up to Cassian and say that they are glad that he's alive. We switch over to the school and see people falling in love with this redhead dude named Kim Woo-chan. Kim gets called from someone named Sunbae and questions if they're alright. He asks Sunbae if it was a problem they knew, but suddenly Kim saw something in the corner of his eye and proceeded to tell Sunbae that he will give her a call back. We switch back to the rooftop and Cassian remembers their faces. Randomly, Cassian looks at Moros, but he assures Cassian that no one else could see him. The blonde dude says that he is speechless and he can't believe all the stress Cassian caused him. The purple-haired dude calls Cassian by Kwan Kang Woo as he pulls out a cigarette and then says that Cassian hasn't learned his lesson. I'm sorry if I'm butchering any of these names, by the way. I do suck at pronouncing stuff, so I do apologize, so bear with me if you don't mind. The purple-haired dude says that Cassian should have reported back to them about him being alive, but instead of doing that, he is hiding up on a roof. Cassian, with calmness, questions them if they are all done blabbering. It shocks all of them, but Cassian doubles down and says that he's in a bad mood now and he doesn't have any interest in beating up kids. Cassian says he doesn't mind and he'll give him a blow or two. Moros with wariness tells Cassian that he's stronger than your average human and he will deal considerable amounts of damage even without his transformation. He says that he could lose control over his strength, but Cassian calmly says that he knows. The blonde dude had enough of Cassian and comes up to him questioning what he's muttering about. He thinks that Cassian has lost his mind, but Cassian stares directly into blonde dude's eyes. He didn't like that at all and calls Cassian names while throwing a smack at him. Without hesitation, Cassian gives the blonde dude the meanest face punch in his life. Everyone is shocked that Cassian just did that as the blonde dude hits the floor. The purple dude questions how Cassian did that while the dude with the bat comes running in throwing a swing at Cassian. Cassian, not even worried about it, blocks the swing. He then gives the dude a mean uppercut which sends the guy falling backwards. The purple-haired dude is now worried and shocked since Cassian knocked out both of his friends with one hit. Cassian questions the purple dude if he feels guilty bullying people, but the guy doesn't say anything. He then smiles while chuckling about being guilty and even goes far enough to question what guilty even is and says that it's sickening to see Cassian acting like he is now. He says that Cassian thinks he's all that since he beat some small fry. Cassian asked if the guy has a conscience, and if he doesn't, then he needs to knock one into him. Cassian clenches his fist and tells the purple dude that he will get one as soon as he beats one into him. Hopefully you all enjoyed the video, and if you want more, leave a like and comment down below about your favorite parts about the video. And of course, if you're new here, please subscribe to my channel if you enjoyed it and you keep coming back. And yeah, without further ado guys, I'll see you guys next video, and peace out.